white, and she says, "No way."
I am going to call this meeting to order.
The City of San Clemente respects the many people of different faiths who reside here. The City Council historically begins its session with an invocation offered by one of the religious leaders of our community with full appreciation of our shared belief that we are one nation under God. And while the city cannot endorse any particular religion, we respect the religious freedom and freedom of expression of all our citizens to pray as they feel led to pray. This evening's invocation will be given by Pastor Roger Gales of Heritage Christian Fellowship.
Thank you. Appreciate that. If everyone could please rise for the prayer and then stay standing afterwards, and Councilman Donchak is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
First of all, thank you all for leading our city. Appreciate it very much. Father, we thank you for this wonderful city that we live in. And God, we are grateful for all the privileges that we enjoy. And Lord, we want to pray a blessing on our city, on our government, on our leaders, our schools, our teachers, our citizens, Lord, the families here, the businesses here. We pray, pour out your favor as we start a new year. And God, we pray for each of these council members here today, Lord, that you would give them the wisdom to know how to govern rightly in each decision they make and the will to act upon it. Thank you, Lord, for hearing our prayers. Amen.
Now, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Donchak?
Here.
Councilmember Swartz?
Here.
Councilmember Ward? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Ham? Here. Mayor Brown? Here. First item on the agenda is San Clemente High School presentation, but the students have requested that this item be deferred to February. So next is presentation of a commendation and plaque to John Abel, Orange County Fire Authority Division Chief, in recognition of 34 years of exceptional public service.
Doubling up. That's incredible. Very fortunate. What's the casual gear? Hold on a second.
I already turned it in.
You got the logo.
Turn it in.
You're logoed up. Hey, Chief, how are you? It's good to see you. Good to see you. I've asked Chris down here to assist because Chris has firsthand had the opportunity to see all your good work for San Clemente, and so I've asked him to stand in for me and to help out with this because you get to hear his dulcet tones, but also he has a real appreciation for everything you've done for our city. So I'm going to defer to Chris on this one, if that would be okay.
So first off, Chief, we're not going to give this to you unless you agree to come back to work. So I knew that one was going to happen. So why don't you hold that, and then we'll get the mayor here, we get some photos, and we'll say some nice words.
And he especially shaped for you today.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Yeah, so Chief Abel, I'm going to just look through this real quick. We got some better years of service. How many is it, 50, 60? What?
Close enough. 34.
Yeah, 34 years of service to the people of Orange County. So I have the tremendous honor of not only serving under you as a firefighter in the city, but serving alongside you as our division chief for the city of San Clemente. And I think you're the third division chief to come through here during my tenure as a council member. And I can say without hesitation that you are by far the best division chief this city has ever had or seen. And, so a little bit more detail on that before we let you say a couple words is that Chief Abel has put more of his time, his heart, and effort into this community than any other chief has. Typically, a division chief overseeing our city doesn't only oversee our city, but they oversee 6 other cities as well, so a total of 7. And we get lost in the weeds because we're the furthest south city and nobody cares. Chief Abel from day one didn't take that position. He took a very solid interest in our community, and he shepherded in a lot of great changes that would not have happened without him, and we're going to have a great loss now that he's walking out the door. So, sir, thank you for your experience, and thank you for your caring, and your passion, your commitment to this community. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, members of the council, for this recognition tonight. It's been a great 34-year experience, and I've had the pleasure of working with some great people over my 34 years. And I just want to acknowledge the city manager, Mr. Mekshanoff here. You know, like Councilmember Ham said, that I gave attention to the city. It's because of the attention that I got from Mr. Mekshanoff and all the staff here in the city. They really welcomed me in, and I do have other cities that I'm responsible for, but San Clemente always kind of felt like home for me, even though I don't live here. I live in Mission Viejo. It's a direct reflection of the time that the city staff and the city manager put in to the time for me. Got that back in return. We had plenty of challenges here in the city over the last couple of years, but it was great working with the staff. They're very thoughtful and professional and hardworking. It's been a great time. And I just also want to give a shout out to Councilmember Ward. She came by the fire station on my last day, and I really appreciated that. It was very thoughtful for you to come by and wish me good luck in retirement. So thanks to everyone. I just wish all the residents in San Clemente a very happy and healthy 2018 and the years going forward from there. So thank you.
Next is presentation of the 2018 Long-Term Financial Plan issue papers and objectives by Assistant City Manager Sund.
What about the high school?
They asked to be deferred to February when they'll have something to report. It was the holiday.
I don't think Eric knows that we're on
Mr. Sund,
the long-term financial
the floor is
plan.
yours. I know Chief Abel is much better company, but we need you.
All right, I'm here, Mayor. Mayor, members of the City Council, Eric Sund, Assistant City Manager. So this is our standard kind of introducing the long-term financial plan for 2018. One of the things that I wanted to start off with is the plan for 2018 is as follows with these core papers: financial trends, financial forecast, the reserve analysis, fiscal policy, capital projects, and the IT strategic plan. One of the things I want to point out to the council that we've taken great concern with is pension. And so something that we'll be doing differently this year in the 2018 is our financial forecast will be having a portion dedicated to pension, because as our long-term financial plan, remember, it always looks out 5 years in terms of our financial forecast and the impacts that are out there. Pensions are one of those impacts that are going to be something that we have to constantly pay attention to. And so we'll be looking at some different ways in the financial forecast to help deal with that unfunded liability in terms of paying it down and so forth. So that's something new that will be seen as a standard now going forward in the LTFP. The other thing I think it's important to remind is as our 2017 LTFP, we did a 5-year forecast as it relates to our operating position with the projection of a deficit starting in fiscal year 19-20 and then for the next 3 years thereafter. In the budget for the 2017-18 budget, we did revisit this 5-year outlook and adjusted numbers a little bit, but I think it's important just to give a reminder to the council of what we're looking going forward with. So as we close out 2018-19 fiscal year, we anticipate having about a surplus of about $200,000. And if you remember at the 17-18 adoption, I stressed the importance of $1 million surplus and wanting to protect that, and anything below $1 million was problematic for us in terms of maintaining that nice financial stability that San Clemente's had. So as you can see in the future years, we're going to have to deal with some big deficits and how we address that from a budgetary standpoint. And as I've made the comments before, it'll limit our abilities with capital improvement projects and it'll limit our abilities on certain things. However, I want the council and the public to be rest assured we will balance the budget. We'll just have to prioritize, and I think all of our LTFPs and budgets in the last 3 to 4 years have been kind of prepping the council for maintaining our current infrastructure, investing in our current replacement reserves, and looking to take care of things that are in front of us today rather than adding new things to our plate that we can't afford to maintain. Oh, go back. Sorry. With that, the schedule for the 2018 LTFP, we look to bring the council the papers. That's what I'm doing tonight, this introduction. And then in March 1st, we'll be bringing the notebooks to the council for the 2018. And then we're looking to do the workshop on Monday, March 12th in the council chambers at 4 o'clock. And so with that, I'll end my presentation and take any questions if there are any questions.
I'm really pleased you're looking at pension as a standalone issue, because it's been kind of bubbling along, and it's time really to get aggressive with it. So my question, and I think, Tim, you and I were in a 2x2 with the Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Master Plan consultants way back at the beginning. In that presentation, I had stressed multiple times that whatever the master plan looked like, that it needed a financial component to it, because it's one thing to build, it's another thing to operate and maintain, and it's a third thing to replace. So I haven't seen the master plan. I know it's at the commission level. Is it appropriate in the LTFP to have a white paper on the financial impacts of the master plan?
Unfortunately, we will not be able to do, originally my hopes were to do a white paper on the park master plan as part of the LTFP. However, because it's still at the commission level and it hasn't been finalized and we still have to get it to council, the final document won't be done in time for us to incorporate into the LTFP. However, with that said, when we bring the master plan back to the council, it will have a financial component to it as it relates to the projects and so forth. And so that will be brought forward, but just not in the LTFP.
And then that could be woven in the following year?
Yeah, we'll be in the next fiscal
point.
year cycle for that. I will say, just touching on the master plan a little bit, many of the tentative recommendations, fortunately, we're already implementing via our CIP process, so it's kind of nice to get reassured some of the things they're recommending we're already doing, but there's some new recommendations as well that the council will need to deliberate on.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Next is the toll road update.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. We had this update that we wanted to provide to you. And it relates to closed session discussion and direction the council gave previously. The Transportation Corridor Agency is actually a creature of agreement, joint powers agreement among its agency, public agency members. There is a long lead time on a decision to withdraw from that agency. In fact, withdrawal requires 121 parties notice 120 days in advance of the fiscal year to the other member agencies. And that deadline to withdraw would be February 1st of this year. So in the council's given us direction to write TCA and its membership to ask for a waiver of that notice requirement, so that that period could be shortened from 120 days to give us more time to talk and communicate with TCA before making a decision to withdraw. And so we will, as the council directed, ask for that waiver of a notice requirement formally at a settlement meeting that is scheduled for Monday. We'll also provide that notice to your partner agencies there, that if the 120 days is not waived, then it will be this council's intention to withdraw from the agency. Since we emerged from closed session, what I wanted to do is make sure that we could make that action properly noticed and heard publicly and on your agenda. I think there would be two ways. We can give the notice and the request for waiver right now. I think the city manager and I have the ability to do that. If that waiver of the deadline is not approved, from the other side. Then we need to talk about how the council could act to do that. We could do that in a special meeting. That might be the best way. Between now and the end of the month, we need to get 3 of you together. That way we could make that notice and give it, or we could try to add it tonight. My preference would be, if the waiver of the notice requirement does not come to us, to ask you to get together before month's end for a quick meeting to send the formal notice of withdrawal. Would that be all right? Okay.
Any concerns with that approach? Hearing none, we have consensus, so we appreciate the update, and this is a bold path forward. We'll see.
If the 120 days isn't waived, then we expect to come back with you with notice to your sister agencies, and the city will withdraw.
We look forward to that notification, and of course, if we do decide to have a special meeting, we will allow we will, of course, give plenty of notice to the public and ensure that everyone is here to be able to make their voices heard about that.
Thank you for accommodating that, because I think that's a conservative way of doing it.
Is that how it's supposed to work?
That's supposed to how it's worked. I know, amazing that you incorporate actually the people affected in the decision.
I
It's
can't
amazing
promise they will, but
how that
we'll
works.
do that. Yeah.
Well, we could call TCA.
Sarcasm should be inserted there at some point. Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
We don't want to follow TCA and just ignore public input?
No, tempting.
Okay, there's no cards for that item. Members of the audience, excuse me, who wish to address council on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the City of San Clemente, but not separately listed on the agenda, may do so during the oral communications portion of the meeting. A total time limitation of 30 minutes is allocated for oral communications part 1, with each speaker being allotted 3 minutes, which give his or her presentation. I have 13 cards, which could potentially be over the 30-minute limit.
Okay, great. Why don't we get started and invite up Rodell Barba, and then following Rodell is going to be Jackson Hinkle.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilman. My name is Rodell Barba. I live here in San Clemente, a little bit before Richard Nixon was here, as a matter of fact. Well, that's another subject. I teach for the City of San Clemente Parks and Recreation Department. Just kind of give you an update of where we're at with that, with the city and with pickleball. Okay, I've introduced pickleball to over 150 students. Now these students must travel to Dana Point, San Juan, Laguna Niguel, or even Oceanside to play. Also, there are students who come to San Clemente for my classes, then they leave to play in another town. I'm teaching at San Gregorio Park, putting chalk lines down and portable nets, which I provide. It takes me 2 hours each time to put the lines down, as long as they don't water or it rains. And if it does, actually, there I go again, putting the lines down. I hear talk about tennis as a priority in San Clemente. At Bonita Canyon, there is one court that has been closed down for at least 3 years, or maybe before Nixon got here. With the 17 parks in San Clemente, there has to be a park where we can at least paint permanent lines down in a neutral tennis color. I have researched this and had these lines put down on my former club in Palm Desert, California. I recommend the city, I recommend San Luis Park. There are 4 courts and they're always an open court. Plus, there's lots of parking spots there. And how about the lawn bowling site? On a great day, I think there's maybe 5 people playing. That site could easily host 1 tennis court and 4 dedicated pickleball courts. Okay. Now I'm going to give you, I can tell I'm a little nervous, aren't I? Sorry, guys. Last time I was in court, it wasn't for this. Anyway, oh, good, I got to laugh. Okay, I want to give you some pickleball fun facts before I step down. First of all, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in North America, with 2,816,000 people and growing. There are now 13,000 courts in California. In pickleball, you can have 16 people enjoying fitness, fun, and friends on 1 tennis court that is converted to pickleball. In tennis, you can only serve 4 people at a time. That's the end of my presentation. I guess I can answer some questions if there's any.
Sure, thank you. We appreciate your time. Beaches, Parks and Rec is looking at a master plan right now, and that's one of the elements of it. So we'll be contemplating that.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just want to make a comment real quick, Rodell. Thanks for bringing that to council's attention. I'm a big pickleball advocate, and I, for one, am excited about building our first pickleball court here in San Clemente. Hopefully, you're telling all of your players to come to BPR meetings and share their concern for a lack of pickleball courts here in San Clemente as well. So, thank you.
Jackson Hinkle. Following Jackson is Torgan Johnson.
All righty. Yeah, my name is Jackson Hinkle. I'm the founder of the Team Zissou Environmental Organization at San Clemente High School. Many of you may know that Team Zissou helped organize a protest on Del Mar about 2 weeks ago in regards to nuclear waste storage at San Onofre. And tonight I will be covering that same issue. It is one that I feel can no longer be pushed aside. If you decide to wait till next month's City Council meeting for further deliberation, it will be far too late. And this is why I'm here tonight, to request that each of you individually demand that we have a senatorial visit to the San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station from Kamala Harris. I understand that it is not your job to create a solution to the nation's nuclear waste crisis, or even to the crisis unfolding at San Onofre, but it is your responsibility to adhere and consider the requests of the people that elected you. We need Senator Harris to listen to our concerns, hear our questions, and above all, assess whether or not the answers that Southern California Edison, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the California Coastal Commission have been providing us are factual, and whether or not they're truly safe. Each of these groups have a long history of putting profits above people, and I believe it is time that we take a stand. Each of you have an opportunity to ensure the safety of this community and the prosperity of our beloved coastline. But the question is, will you act upon it? As a final note, I would like to leave you with these last few words. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Thank you.
Next is Torgan Johnson. Following Torgan is Krista Gostenhofer.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Torgan Johnson. I'm from Solana Beach. It's about a 100-mile round trip to come up here to speak. I want to say that this wound up on everybody's driveway on Friday. We're concerned about your issue here in your backyard, and we know that 30 miles away to 50 miles away, it's in our backyard too. I want to say that the issue is larger than San Clemente. It's larger than Orange County or San Diego County. My wife and I hosted the former Prime Minister of Japan here in 2013. He was concerned about what he saw here. He was actually shocked to see the power plant so close to a major artery and so close to a metropolitan area. And he was really shocked to see children playing on a beach and surfing in front of the power plant. He wrote a book. This came out. This is Cornell University Press. It's called My Nuclear Nightmare by Naoto Kan, translated into English. He speaks about his experience here in San Diego County and dealing with the issue here. This is a San Diego Union Tribune paper. This is September 8th. This is a editorial that was written by Dr. Gregory Yasko, former chairman of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, concerned about the issue here at San Onofre. What I sense from discussions here in City Council is that there's a certain casual attitude about risk and regional disasters, partially because this community is so intertwined with Southern California Edison, and that's a natural thing. There are a lot of jobs here. There are a lot of wonderful people that work at the power plant to keep it safe. But the inherent quality of that power plant is it's inherently dangerous. The amount of fuel that's being stored in a dangerous configuration is a regional concern. We're concerned down in San Diego County. I'm representing a number of people and groups down there who are very outspoken about this plan to put the waste at sea level. I hope that all of you take this pending disaster as seriously as we are down there, and that you do reach out to federal level officials and ask them to come here and take a look at the situation. I think the public here is very well informed. I think this is a rational fear about what's happening here. Even a high-level nuclear waste policy expert that advised 4 presidential administrations has been speaking out at the California Coast Commission, saying this is an outrageously stupid plan to put the fuel so close to water. This fuel needs to be very far away from water. I support what Jackson just said. We need to bring officials here to meet with all of you in the various cities up and down the coast here and talk about the options. This is the worst option right now that's being implemented, and I hope that we can work together with the public. The reason why the Prime Minister of Japan came here was because he knew that we were working closely with our elected officials, and he came as an invitation from a number of elected officials and spoke. I hope we carry on that tradition. He writes about that. He was surprised, and he said that Southern California, he was talking about San Diego County, really including all of you. He said the most beautiful cities in the world because of the intelligence of the elected officials to defend the public interest.
Appreciate your time. Next is Krista Gosenhofer. Following Kristen is Madge Torres.
Good evening. How devastating the tragic, uncontrolled wildfires have been to our neighbors to the north. Thinking about San Onofre, I just kept on being grateful that it wasn't a nuclear incident. Then in Hawaii, how horrifying to have a false alarm, thinking that you had an impending, imminent nuclear disaster. Thankfully, it was a false alarm. But would we even have alarms here if there was a criticality event? With the current nuke storage plan at San Onofre, a criticality event is quite possible. As representatives of the city council closest to this ground zero, I want to ask each of you to ask yourselves, how deeply have you looked into this issue? How deeply have you looked into the NRC regulations or the Holtec plan or the specs of what they're doing and the seriousness and the gravity of the situation? I've been looking into it deeply. I've been reading NRC documents, Coastal Commission documents. I've been learning about civics and civic responsibility and how city officials have clout in representing the local people and then going to the state. And then the state can affect Congress, and Congress can affect the NRC. It's really serious, and I really ask that you take this seriously. Don't look at us as a bunch of nuts. What's crazy is the plan that Edison is on the brink of implementing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Madge Torres. Following Madge is, I'm sorry, the name is hard to see, but Pantera? Yeah, I'm sorry, okay, all right, gotcha. All right, thank you. Hi, Madge.
Hi. My name is Madge Torres. I'm from Encinitas, California. The nuclear waste being stored on the beach in an earthquake zone is unsafe. Southern California Edison's plan to destroy the cooling pools before the waste has been moved is unnecessary and unsafe. And my husband and I have determined to sell our home because there is no insurance that can guarantee us more than about $1,000. There's no insurance for a nuclear disaster. It's unobtainable. So I've got my home insured for earthquake, for flood, even though I live on top of a mountain. But as far as I'm concerned, the most likely destruction of my home would be nuclear radiation being born through the air, and then my nest egg, everything I have, would be destroyed. I wouldn't be able to sell it. I'd still be paying the mortgage. I couldn't live in it. So we're selling our home because Edison is not being held to high enough standards. They're being allowed to take all the shortcuts they want, and it's very sad because I love this area and my friends are here, my family's here, but I'm leaving because of the imprudence of Southern California Edison, and the people that regulate Southern California Edison.
Next is Pantera. Sorry. Next is Ms. Pantera. Following that is Lori Hedrick.
Hello, thank you. This is my first time ever doing anything like this, but I'm grateful to be here, to be able to share my voice and my concern. I've known about this nuclear waste issue and situation for about a month, just because I just came back to live in this country, although my father's been here for 20 years. So about a month ago when I was introduced to this situation, it hit me so hard, the reality of it, that it made me, just by my own personal interest and volition, to come and find out more about what's really going on. And in the process of learning more, I became very concerned for myself, for my family, for my children, and for our area, this beautiful area of Southern California, which we love, which so many people in the world come to visit, and it's a place of, for them, a place of peace and renewal, and a place to really enjoy a lot of things that a lot of people don't have. So when I found out how critical this situation is, it woke me up, not just because I, yes, love the earth and I love the ocean, I love living in this planet, and I'm grateful for life, and I want to see my child have a future as well. She's 2 years old. But I also want to make sure that this is done properly. Now, we are, in this country, we have an amazing opportunity, more than most people do. We have incredible ways of communicating and of actually making things happen when we educate ourselves and we have a shared common vision. Now, I'm quite certain that we all have at least the same vision, that we want to continue to enjoy our beautiful lives here for as long as we can, for future generations, for the futures to come. Now, in order for that to happen, there are certain things that come into our world, into our life, into our realities, and maybe we don't want or don't expect that, but that need our attention. And this is definitely something that I find needs our proper attention. Now, I'm sure, because I'm new, that this has been brought up many times, but what I'm seeing is a huge disparity between what's really going on, or what the plans are, and the risk, and how many people really know about it, or how much it's really soaking in. So my interest is to let people know more, to find more ways, as Jackson said, to bring the senator here, to have more public outreach, and also just to find a way that we can genuinely invest in our future, make sure that this toxic nuclear waste, which is actually made of the most deadly, strongest, deadliest stuff on the planet, plutonium and uranium, it can kill. It's life's devastating. This is serious responsibility that's in our hands, so let's not let down our people, our family, our country, and the world by assuming it's going to be okay and not really making this a priority, because we have to take charge of making this a responsibility by ensuring that this process is managed properly, that it is regulated, and it's actually moved up to par, up to standard with the rest of the world for our future. Thank you.
Ms. Pantera. Next is Lori Hedrick. Following Lori is Gary Hedrick.
Hi, if you don't mind, we're going to tag team this because there's a letter I wanted to read that's 4 minutes long, so if we can just overlap. I wanted to kind of just start, yeah, if we have some slides.
Will this be televised, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Will people at home be able to see them?
Yes, it's being
Okay,
broadcast.
Thank you. So first, I just want to say Happy New Year, and thank you to our city manager and the great staff and the Recreation Department allowing Jackson and I to do kind of an impromptu, very successful rally and raising awareness. That was, your staff was very friendly and helpful. But we've initiated this postcard campaign to bring awareness to this issue on a greater level with at the federal level with Senator Kamala Harris. So we've been passing around a lot of postcards, hoping that people will make the calls and all that. But at the same time, we would like our city council to present a letter to Kamala Harris, a specific invitation to come here and hear our concerns. So that's what Lori's going to start to read, and I'll follow up when she runs out of time. Thank you.
Our citizens live well within the danger zone surrounding San Onofre's nuclear waste site. We are all rightfully concerned about how quickly Edison is moving to transfer nuclear waste from spent fuel pools. Several issues have recently been brought to our attention which call for an immediate halt to this high-risk operation. Of most immediate concern is that there is no system in place to deal with an accident. If there were to be any mistakes made, it would likely occur on the first attempt at lifting canisters from pools and moving them to silos near the beach. Originally, the plan called for loading 24 fuel assemblies into each canister. Now they intend to place 37 of these heavy assemblies into the same kind of vessel. Cranes that were designed for the lighter load are the original equipment, which are more than 50 years old. In 2011, there was an accident and the crane dropped a steel I-beam into the pool, storing several times more radiation than was released in Chernobyl accident. Fortunately, it fell at a slight angle, preventing it from doing serious damage. Had it been a direct hit, a criticality event could have been triggered, releasing vast quantities of radiation directly into the atmosphere. It happened on Thanksgiving Day, giving us much to be thankful for than most people realized. Accidents do happen, and we can't just count on being lucky. A recent video provided by Edison showed how the process will go, using an unloaded canister for the test run. Previously, the canisters were placed in a horizontal position with a low center of gravity. Now they intend to transport these canisters in a very top-heavy vertical position in a slow procession towards the silos. The whole process is to take 5 long days for each of the 75 canisters. It is not hard to imagine even a small earthquake or some mechanical failure toppling the load. The temporary thin canisters, only 5/8 of an inch thick, that are being used don't give us much security at all.
We insist on Edison having the means to deal with either of these kinds of events before they begin this high-risk effort, taking at least 1.5 years to complete. Please contact officials at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and request that they make Edison stop long enough to consider our valid concerns. We want independent experts to also evaluate this process. We are prepared to allocate emergency planning funds provided by Edison to prevent a disaster, not try to recover from one, since the latter is not possible. The Blue Ribbon panel tasked with the nuclear waste storage challenge determined that the best way forward was to find a community that gave their consent to becoming either a temporary or a permanent repository. By default, we have become a nuclear waste site against our will and certainly without our consent. It is incumbent upon the U.S. government to address our needs completely, not only protecting our health and welfare by every means possible, but also to ensure the value of all we own until the last canister is removed from our midst. We urgently request that you contact the NRC and come to San Clemente to see this situation for yourself and speak to our City Council and other concerned citizens about this unacceptable amount of risk being placed on our communities. Edison's plan is to only do what is commercially reasonable, which amounts to burying 3.6 million pounds of highly radioactive waste 108 feet from the ocean in a fault-riddled tsunami zone. We are counting on you to make this situation as safe as possible for us now, before it's too late. Whatever happens at San Onofre will become the policy for all other sites across the country with stranded nuclear waste. We have to get this right for our sake and for the sake of this great nation. So this is the draft. I hope you'll consider these images, tell quite a bit of the story, and I'm sure you'll want to validate and compare that these are facts that you're comfortable with sharing. But I hope you'll do everything you can to get Kamala Harris down here and also take immediate steps to prevent Edison from taking this experimental step when they have no way of addressing if a canister falls over, tips over, or if it drops into the spent fuel pool. They have no way to recover from that accident. And until there's a method to recover from that accident, we shouldn't let them begin. So thank you very much for listening. I emailed a copy of this that will be distributed, and if I can help in drafting that, that'd be great. Anyway, that's the best I can do. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. Next is Roger Johnson.
Mayor, I don't know if other speakers are going to talk about this letter idea, but I think that maybe not exactly Gary's letter, but something from the council is an appropriate step for us to take. then Mayor Deborah Lewis from Dana Point, Councilmember Lewis, and I, we visited with Heather Hutt in Los Angeles, who is Kamala Harris's on the boots on the ground in Southern California, and appealed directly to have Kamala Harris come. And we haven't had a senatorial visit since 2012, and things are changing. We appealed a second time to Kamala Harris's office, and we were again given Heather Hutt. She came down and met with Deborah Lewis and myself in our conference room here. It's really important to have the stature that Senator Feinstein and Senator Boxer brought to the table on this issue. So I'm not sure what the letter would look like, but I think it's definitely time for us to speak up, given the timing of the pool to dry cask storage.
I think if you'd like to make a suggestion to council with the letter, something we can certainly consider and draft.
Okay. Is there consensus on that?
I'd love to take a look at what it is.
But
Maybe
but
Gary's letter.
Yeah, maybe we can start with Gary's letter and have staff work from that to make it.
I'm okay with it.
I don't know, that letter, I think, yeah, I haven't seen it.
I wouldn't be in.
It mentions 50-year-old cranes.
Oh, no. The point is, he wants us to reach out and cause the senator to come and visit, so we have to put it in a language
I think a letter of invitation to Kamala to come and visit us is fine.
that underscores the timeliness.
Yeah, and I would even add on, that letter could include our concerns, the fact that we are a unwilling host to nuclear storage because of what's going on, and that is a primary concern of ours.
Yeah. The thing for me is it's so close to the ocean, and if you look at a Google map, you can maybe understand why it is that way, but until you come to the beach and you see, it's important. She represents us, and it would be good to have her come and see.
Next is Roger Johnson. Following Roger Johnson is Ron Rodarte.
Thank you. Good evening. Well, we're now a nuclear waste dump. 92672 is a nuclear waste dump. Sends a huge cloud over the future of the city. People are leaving. Some people say there's no future here. We're waiting for the accident. Maybe decades, maybe a few years, we don't know. Emergency preparedness should be one of the top items that we should be thinking about. I went to the San Clemente Emergency Preparedness Fair. It's called a Fun Fair. I don't know how many of you went. Last fall, I also went to the Orange County one, and there was not a word about a radiation disaster. Emergency plan, not a word, not a pamphlet, nothing. I talked to helicopter pilots and the fire engine guys, the ambulance drivers. Say, you realize these are all one-use vehicles? Once the inside is contaminated, you're never going to use them again. The way I like to illustrate the danger that we faced, by the way, let me preface that by saying that I'm sad that the city has adopted the PR language of Edison, which says it's no longer a operating reactor, it's not dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. And the way to illustrate that is to think of a grapefruit composed of uranium. That was the pit of Little Boy, the atomic bomb that destroyed Hiroshima, killed 100,000 people. That's all it takes. So that weighed about 10 or 15 pounds. Now we have 3,600,000 pounds of uranium and plutonium just down there, a few miles. Divide 3.6 million by 15 and you get 240,000 grapefruits. Now it's a little more complicated than that because the pit that destroyed Hiroshima was highly enriched, and so you divide by 15 again and you get about the equivalent of 20,000 atomic bombs. That's what we have down the road here. So anybody who thinks this is not dangerous should think again. We're told that there won't be any emergencies, only conventional things, but they don't talk about earthquakes. They don't talk about terrorism. Have you seen pictures of ballistic missiles inside container ships? You can open up any conventional thing and they can have intermediate range ballistic missiles. You've been reading about Korea. You don't need a nuclear weapon. They can hit conventional weapons anywhere in the United States now. Truck bombs, drones, airplane crashes, rocket launchers, mortar fire. It's a sitting target, and we're not prepared for this, and we should be. So we need more emergency preparedness. Edison gives this town $190,000 a year to spend on this, and I think it's been spent poorly. Laura helped me get the Public Records Act showing how it was spent, and we returned $30,000 unspent. We spent money for the golf course manager, recreational manager, sewer manager, code compliance officers. I think it's being used as a gravy thing, and we need
Thank
to
you,
use
Roger.
this one
Appreciate your
more
time.
right.
Next is Ron Rodarty. Ron, you submitted 2 cards. You'll be able to have 3 minutes on one subject. If you want to speak about the other subject, you can combine them, or you could do this on the second oral communications.
I'll combine them. Thank you, Mayor, and hello, City Council. My name is Ron Rodarty. I'm a member of San Clemente Community as of 2 years ago. I'm glad you had this meeting starting with the budget, because from the budget, I see we're heading into a fiscal problem, and we'll be running on a shortfall for a few years. That said, there is no emergency plan in place or even outlined for songs. How does the city plan to arrive at an emergency plan with a shortfall in budget? There will be a lot of things you'll have to do to have this songs plan implemented, and it behooves the City Council to do their fiducial duty and see to it that the budget includes the plan. When that's added to it, and the emergency situations that come up, the emergency vehicles that are one use, as Roger said, because that is the truth, the amount of nuclear clothing that has to be worn going around the plant, how many of our police and fire are actually trained to handle nuclear substances. It's not easy to train persons in that manner. You will be losing a few people right off the top when they approach this plant, if it does happen to give a nuclear release. So, all said, you have Edison assuring you of their goodwill, but their engineering has been proven to be substandard a couple of times over, and that's why we have this position we're in. They did not have the right engineering going into it, and they convinced people that they had the right thing in mind. This is not only a dangerous effort by Edison to push this on the city, but the city is going to have a tremendous amount of expense. Every call that comes out of that plant is going to have to be answered by the city emergency vehicles. And you're running on a deficit as of next year. How do you plan to cover the deficit? How do you plan to include that in the budget? And I tell you, that's what worries me. On the second subject would be that we have a tremendous issue going on in Japan with Fukushima and the water there offloading into the ocean, or planned to. The Pacific Ocean is already dying. We know that there's marine mammals starving to death because the lesser fish are dead. We had plagues invading the coast from starfish on down. No matter if it was a fungus, the weakness of the immune system in the starfish was being affected by the fungus, killed them all. We're just having some starfish back in the ocean again along our coast. There's been research down in San Diego pointing to ungodly amounts of radiation. This is the second part of the...
Thanks, Mr. Rodarty. If you would like to stay around for the second round oral communications.
I believe I was given the option to join them both.
No, you could combine your comments in 3 minutes time, but not 6 minutes. Everyone gets 3 minutes in the first oral
Oh,
communication.
that wasn't explained. Okay.
Apologies. You stick around. We'll be very close. It's going to be coming up very quickly.
All right. Thank you.
Next is Michelle Anderson, and the last card is Monet Button. Yeah.
Hi, Mayor Brown and council members. I'm Michelle Anderson, and I live in Coto de Caza. I've been coming to these council meetings for a couple years, even when we were trying to close down the plant. And I also go to the community engagement panel meetings. When I go there and I listen to public comment, I haven't heard anybody think that this is a safe plan. And I know that you all have jobs to do and you care about your communities, and I think we all want the same result. We want to keep our citizens safe, and we want to keep our oceans beautiful and pristine. So I agree with everybody here, and I stand with everybody here in really pleading with you to do all you can to protect your citizens. Do everything in your power, because I don't really believe that you believe this is a safe plan. I know that, you know, all of us don't want the waste here, and I've heard many people, even on the California Coastal Commission, say we don't have any place to put it. That seems to be the problem, that you're stuck with it. But we've seen in other countries that they have safer plans where they use much thicker casts, 10 to 15 inches thick. So if we're stuck with it, it would behoove us to really put the pressure on Southern California Edison to do something much safer before it goes into the ground in unmonitorable canisters. We won't even know if there's a leak. They'll be leaking, or they could be leaking, and we wouldn't even know. And I know, Mayor Brown, you have young children. I've heard you say that at the community engagement panel meetings, and I'm a mother too, so I beg you to do what's safe for your children and do all you can. Thank you.
Last card is Monet Button.
Thank you for listening to us. This is a real willing participant right here. This is the kid playing on the beach. And I was the guy running from Nixon's officers at the time. But she only wanted to say that she's concerned, she's worried about what's going on. She goes to Concordia Elementary School, which in the case of a couple incidents at San Onofre, there was no warning given. It seemed as if the Capo District is unaware that this plan is taking place. But I wanted you to know that the students there are concerned, the teachers, the staff are all concerned, and we appreciate anything you can give us. Gary and his fine work, we've all been coming and taking part in these meetings for a while, and want to thank you and certainly thank his organization and group and support it tremendously. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson left Mr. Rodarty on this issue of emergency planning. There's legislation that's been crafted by the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility to extend the emergency planning until decommissioning is complete. If you feel strongly about it, as many of us do, the bill is looking for an author, and Senator Pat Bates and Assemblyman Rocky Chavez are the two that are considering it at this moment. So it's a really good time to reach out to them with an email and let them know you think it's a good idea.
Could we have a motion waiving reading in full of all resolutions and ordinances?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Ward, second by Schwartz. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0.
Closed session report, City Attorney.
Just the item that I revealed earlier on the toll road update.
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion, unless council staff or the public request removal of an item for separate discussion and action. I have not received any requests for removal.
Kathy? Chris?
Yeah, E.
Steve?
You had to spoil it. No.
Lori? I was also going to be chatting about E. A motion move the balance?
So moved.
Motion by Ham, second by Donchuk. All those in favor? Aye. Item E.
So we got this email pretty late in the evening here about item E, but you know it brings up some valid points, and it's concern over maintenance yard covers and how come one of our members of our illustrious community can do it in their backyard for $12,000, but it costs the city, what are we at? Just over $500,000. So, Tom, enlighten us.
Sure. Mayor Brown, members of the council, Tom Vonnegut, Public Works Director. And I have not seen the email, but it sounds like the concern about the cost and is there a cheaper way to do it? And we tried the cheaper way, and it doesn't work. And no, you can't get a prefab structure from a Home Depot. This is a rather significant structure. We're basically constructing almost a building, except without walls. That's a 20 to 25 foot tall structure. It's a steel frame. It has a metal roof with tile on it to match the motif. we knew this because it's got to blend with the site. I mean, that, we're following our own rules. We're just asking of ourselves what we ask the community. Several years ago, we recognized that the tile approach might be more expensive, so when we decided not to pursue the project and opt for trying to do a lesser cost approach where we had these retractable covers. Maybe there was a better way to do that, and that just proved what we thought, that it just gets a lot of abuse. There's a lot of things that happen down there, so this permanent roof structure has to be high enough for trucks and dump trucks to unload and keep rainwater from washing through there, and once it's done, it'll have a long life. So that's my answer to that. We recognize that it's expensive, but I think it's a thing that we need to do, just like we cover our other materials at the yard. So,
yeah, I just thought I'd mention, only because in my day job, I actually have contractors that do these, and so I'm familiar with the type of structure and the general price range on a prevailing wage job, which we're talking prevailing wage. People have to understand, government can't build like neighbors do because we have to follow the rules, and therefore we have to pay prevailing wage, which in this state is about the highest wage there is in the country, in any event. So I have looked at this, and I've seen some other size projects with similar price ranges. So just so you know, I'm familiar with the work, not these people or anything else about it, but I'm familiar with the types of projects and the price ranges, and it's following.
You got anything, Tim? I was going to move that.
No, that was actually the email was the reason I brought it up, because we received that email from the public. I thought it deserved an explanation.
Okay.
Yeah, before I move that, I'll just say it was a pretty well-written email, descriptive,
Yeah.
and those are the best kind. So with that, move that. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Motion by Ham, second by Schwartz. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Oral Communications Part 2.
I only have one card for Mr. O'Darty, and it was regarding coastal advisory. Is this regarding the Coastal Advisory Committee, sir?
I'm
Or
sorry, yes,
Is this
sir?
regarding the Coastal Advisory Committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I was getting into that subject on the last 3-minute. There was a study done at Scripps, and they found hundreds of thousands of becquerels in the water 1 mile off the coast of Del Mar. It seems to be a trend from concentrations of nuclear material coming in from Japan. They circle around Alaska, come down and concentrate in our area. If you find that Edison's plant goes in and something causes leakage from it, there's going to be more radiation than most of the swimmers can handle, probably. Concentrations from Japan and that particular unit are going to cause a terrible amount of radiation to go in the ocean. Actually, the amount offshore at Del Mar is considered 100 times the offshore amount at Fukushima, off the same amount of ocean distance. It's a type of concentration that happens with ocean currents, and we're the recipient of it. So just wanted to make that point. Edison's plant will cause concentrations over 100 times of Fukushima if it leaks, if it does go into the water. That's severe ocean damage. We're already killing the Pacific Ocean. This will finish it off. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Why don't we conclude oral communications with that? We have no other cards. Councilmember Ham just mentioned that there was an informational item on the consent calendar that he wanted a report from staff on.
Yeah.
It was item G.
Yeah.
We've already passed the item, but we can certainly receive a report from staff, and if required,
Yeah. Does anybody mind?
pull it again and deliberate on it if required in emergency
It'll be
action.
short, I promise.
So is staff here on that item for item G? That's the fireworks display. Would that be
Samantha
Eric?
Thomas or
Did
Eric?
everyone take off already? Am I a split? Well, Mr. Maxinoff?
Trying to split.
Well, I just have a brief request, if you guys can indulge
Oh,
me
let's
for
make
one
the
second.
request. The guy in charge is right over there.
So this report did not include, it's a very well-written report, by the way, but what it did not include, which I'd like to see next year, if possible, is the total number of donations we get for fireworks. the offset in our costs. I would be interested, well, one, to support the people who donate every year to such a great cause, but two, if the council's interested in putting that money back into the show to make an even greater show for the community as an option. Yeah, and that too, if you could add that contingency in that as well.
So if you could just, yeah, direct Samantha, and we'll include that
Thanks,
going
James.
forward. Okay.
A list of donors would be cool too.
That would be
So
cool.
that way.
Yeah, that would
Thank
be
you.
nice to have that in the reports.
Sorry, guys. Out of town than I do.
Great, so that concludes oral communications.
Okay. City manager. City attorney.
Nothing more tonight, thank you.
So the first item of business for the council members is the toll road subcommittee discussion. I guess I can introduce this item as well as anybody. Is that okay? We had at one point appointed 2 representatives on the toll road subcommittee, and we were going to revisit that decision at this date and at this time. And so this is the opportunity to review that decision and see if we want to continue to sustain with what we're doing, and or to affirm those efforts, or to rebalance it. And really, the floor is open.
Oh, well, I was gonna jump on this and say, since I was the one who requested to come back in 6 months, I'll be the first one to say I think the committee's doing a great job, and my endorsement goes back to both of you. If you'd like to continue, I know you said you don't want to take on any new efforts this year, but this would be more of a continued effort. So,
And I concur.
With that, I imagine we have consensus. We'll continue to sustain with our current representatives if they're willing to do so. Excellent. Congratulations to both of you. Councilor
And
Ward
for how long a
Councilor-
term, just for tracking?
I believe we should take this question up annually in the December revisiting of the committees and commissions. So as we look at retasking the rest of the committee commission appointments, we could probably do it in December, unless anyone has a concern with that approach.
No, I agree, and I also think that we need to be, even though we tend to be casual, more systematic on that day, because this was on that list. And we had a conversation about, let's only talk about things people wanted to change. And so, we kind
Yeah, I actually thought this was handled.
I did
from that
too.
Well, it was-
So
it was-
This makes it clear.
It felt as if it was, but what happened is, I think we'd actually calendared it for a July revisit. January, excuse me, January revisit. And so I think we're staying more with what we had originally said, 6 months, which was from that date.
did you just say, did we change the policy that when every December when it comes up, we're just going to address ones that want to be changed, so it's not a whole.
No, that's what we did last time. And Joanne was saying that made her uncertain about this particular appointment because it was, we had, yeah, so. And, since, and we may have to agendize this, the high school, the CUSD liaison, okay, I created that committee, so I'm very clear what it was, and it was 2 CUSD trustees and 2 council members with, at the time, Principal Duarte and City Manager Scarborough. And then we brought in whoever we needed, depending on what it was. And somewhere in there, it became 1 council person and an alternate, and now it's just 1 council person. And that's fine, but the original idea was, it was John Alpay and Anna Bryson. And then I think it was Joe Anderson and myself. So when next year I would highly, this year I don't care personally, but for good governance, it should be 2 and 2.
Did it make you got valuable input having both?
We did. At the time, that new parking configuration in the high school, that would not have happened if we didn't have that responsibility going. We had Safe Routes to School successes. We broadened it from being just a high school-centric task force to, at one of our more recent meetings, we talked about the bond issue that CUSD is contemplating. So out of that came the fact that we have the 2 students that come and speak to us. That was one of Principal Duarte's ideas.
So actually, I don't know if we need to agendize this for discussion, but we have a couple of things coming up this year. It's not simply the toll road and its effects on the high school, and also the pending litigation with CUSD, the bond issue, which will also be coming right down the pipe if they decide to do that. There's a lot of interplay there between those issues. I certainly wouldn't mind restoring that and having 2 council members assigned this year. Although we could wait to December, that could turn over, and you could have somebody coming in new. So I wouldn't mind if maybe for the next meeting for under council member items, we assigned a second liaison, and we could do that already. If it's a good idea, there's no reason to wait till December.
Yeah, I agree.
Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
So there's nothing emergency about it, so I don't think we'd take action tonight. But I think it's something. Yeah, so you could put it on the agenda and then just get someone assigned officially. If that was the original intent, and we are having 2 trustees show up, we would certainly like to leave.
They've really stepped up.
There's a lot of interplay now between the two.
Other topics, I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but crossing guards came up, school, the loss of the bus system through OCTA, that was of importance to the school system. There's a lot of places where, Performing Arts Center, at one point there was a lot of conversation about could the city be a partner in that, and the answer is no, but at the time it was like maybe we could use it for community events as well.
We have the other site that we don't know what they're going to be doing with it yet. I mean, there's rumors. The small, the old one, upstairs, the one that's up the hill.
Ole Hansen School. Okay, so we're on the rest of council member items, is that right? Okay. Kathy, Chris?
Yeah, I just want to say I've been using the pickleball courts out at Sendero for about 6 months now, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And I think that the community of San Clemente could benefit a lot from adding some pickleball courts here in the city of San Clemente. It's a much more approachable sport than tennis. The age ranges and the skill levels are much wider than that of tennis. And it's a tremendous amount of fun. I play myself in a retiree group every Tuesday, Thursday, and it is a ton of fun. We have a great time. I get beat a lot by retirees, and every once in a while I win a game. So, yeah, hopefully this council will be supportive of it when we have the BPR master plan come back to
I actually
initiate
played that like 30 years ago.
Did you really?
Yeah, a friend of mine's house, they had their own court on their house, their house.
Yeah.
So they taught us how to play it.
So they say it's been around since the 60s, and I've never heard of it, but I'm just glad to know that someone else has played it before. There's a guy in Talego who has his own court, believe it or not, in his backyard as well. So hopefully the city of San Clemente get their own.
That's serious commitment.
Yeah. It's a great sport. You should come out and play with me sometime.
I should come play. Yeah. Well, true. I'm always willing to take up another sport that I will absolutely be terrible at and lose to everyone. So, I just wanted to highlight a few things. I had the opportunity to go to Winterfest at the OC Fairgrounds, represent the city on a tree lighting over the holiday. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season. It's a happy new year. We didn't have our meeting on the 1st of January, primarily because of the timing of it, but we're into the new year and taking up a lot of different items. Just a reminder to the public that we have San Clemente Day coming up, the last Saturday of February.
We're going to be how old?
And we will be 90 years old. It's going to be an exceptional holiday. I'm very excited to be able to gather that
Now,
day.
we're all wearing straw hats, right?
Well, there's that. There's no commitment on my part. But we're going to have lots of, so the next council meeting, a couple council meetings, we're going to have opportunity to tell a little bit more about what's going on. I want residents to make sure there's a placeholder on the calendar and be able to participate in that wonderful event. We'll move with the adjournment. So we have, I'll go first if that's okay, Lori. So we have tonight, actually, maybe if you want to go first.
There he is.
Let's go with John first.
All right. We have such a wonderful community, and we've lost 2 very important, longstanding members. So we're adjourning in honor of 2 gentlemen, and I've got the honor of doing the adjournment notice for John Tangdon. And he's a longtime resident, humanitarian, and civic activist who passed away on December 29th, 2017. His city service included serving on the Planning Commission from 1989 through 1998, serving as the council-appointed city representative to the Downtown Business Association from 2003 through 2013, and serving on the Downtown Task Force and Revitalization 2000 Committee. John was a registered professional engineer since 1954. He and his wife, Carol, were familiar faces around the community and were always willing to lend a hand. John's philanthropy was evidenced through his membership in the San Clemente Rotary and San Clemente Dons. He also served with the group that designed, built, and financed the San Clemente Presbyterian Church. John served in the U.S. Navy Reserve with service in Okinawa and North Korea, and most importantly, he adored his family. He's survived by 2 sons and a daughter and grandchildren who were his pride and joy, and I considered him a friend, and I will miss him.
Here, here. The second adjournment we'd like to adjourn in honor of tonight is Fred Dungan. San Clemente lost a valued and respected citizen on January 2nd, 2018 with the passing of Fred Dungan, a World War II Navy flying ace and a night flying pioneer. The decorated World War II war hero was 96 years old. Lieutenant Colonel Dungan earned a Navy Cross, a Purple Heart, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and in 2009 was inducted into the Golden Eagles, an elite group of naval aviators. President Obama awarded him the Congressional Gold Medal in 2014. Fred Dungan devoted the final 2 decades of his life to service with the San Clemente Retired Senior Volunteer Program. He is survived by his daughter Carol, son Robert, and fiancée Joan Hansen. He survived earlier wives Jean Stammel and Lorraine Keller. In a recognition of Fred Dungan's heroism and service tonight, I would like to adjourn this meeting also in his honor. And with that,
I'll move.
You want to move? Thank you. We'll move that we adjourn to the next regular council meeting to be held on February 6th, 2018 in the council chambers located at 100 Avenue, Presidio, San Clemente, California. Closed session items will be considered at 5 p.m. The regular business meeting will commence at 6 p.m. Great. Motion by Brown, second by Schwartz. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Good night.